There we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We are back with Goaldigger. I'm Cate Luzio, the founder and CEO of Luminary, and also the host of Goaldigger, which happens every Friday here on LinkedIn Live. And I am super excited to have the corporate whisperer, Tosca De Matteo, who I've had the pleasure of knowing since right before the pandemic started. So crazy to believe that. And we're going to get into not only her background, her story, how she found her voice, not only in corporate America, but as she's finding her voice as an entrepreneur and what she has to say to companies today, especially marketers. So welcome, Tosca.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
I am excited too. And even though we're still virtual on this, Tosca and I have been spending a lot of time together, even on the phone. She hosted an incredible session and workshop with one of our partners several weeks ago with Indeed. And just, you have such an interesting perspective. But let's take it a little ways back and give us kind of a high level of your story, particularly how you spent many, many years in corporate, what your role was, and then how you made the move and the leap to starting your own thing.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. It's been such a gift that you're in my orbit, and you've touched my life in so many ways. And I think to tell the story, I just kind of have to go back to really as a child growing up and having kids come up to me and say, "Why do you look like that?" and having to answer, "I was born this way," and knowing that they were not going to ask me any deeper question about myself. So I really armored up um, for much of my life, and this feeling of not worthy, this I carry with me, and have had to do a lot of my own healing with this. But I entered corporate with this. I have a love of marketing and a love of problems matching with solutions. And so I worked for Fortune 500 companies like Kimberly Clark and Unilever and Pernod Ricard on this in this pursuit of really serving and helping and the communication and the storytelling. And in that journey, I just ended up in a stage in my career where I was more passionate about helping people find their way, find their authenticity, of standing in their truth and power. Very much it was my own journey too. And, just feeling really like disheartened by the fact that these environments that we invest so much time into and we care so much about, that they often stifle us. And worse, they can traumatize people and traumatize us. And so I just realized that, you know what, I really want to do this work to put people first, to humanize workplaces, because I believe they can do really good things. And I decided to leave and become a certified coach and launch my own business, Tosca Coaching and Consulting, to do the work of creating places where people can feel lifted, where they can share their gifts, and just revolutionize the way that workplaces are run. Like I feel like there's so much pent up opportunity there that we're just missing out on.
There's so many things, and I know you've watched these before. I constantly take notes when I'm doing any kind of, even when I do live panels, I take notes because I like to learn just as much, right? I think both of us are lifelong learners, right? From the very early part of our careers and spending so much time in corporate, you're constantly learning. So a couple of the words that I wrote down I want to just touch on is this feeling of being stifled in your culture, in your job, your role, your company. We are now seeing, and we've talked a lot about this at Luminary, and certainly in the sessions that I lead and the panels that I've been on, is around not only the great resignation, the great renewal, the great reset, the great reexamination. The shift in the workforce is significant in particular for women. But this feeling of being stifled, right? As you think about your career and then conversations that you're having with clients and prospects, how do you talk about in a positive way, kind of getting out of this stifling environment?
Yeah, well, I think it all starts with having a vision, right? And having intent and coming back to like, what is it you really want here? Like, what do you want to walk into every day? And I always say this work starts with inner transformation. It always starts with like, who are you being? Because oftentimes we're in these environments and we learn to play the game or we learn to shut down parts of ourselves, or we learn that, oh, it's not okay for me to do that. And we
Mhm.
don't charge forward and stand in our truth and be bold and say, no, this is who I am. And either that's welcome here or it's not. And if it's not, then, then I got to strategize.
Right.
It really starts with what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to be? And then just honor that and give space to that and explore that. Because often we're going and we're going and we're going and we don't even stop to pause to say, is this what I want? And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. And a lot of companies right now are doing, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, we got to like take a step back and see what's really happening here. Like the good ones are doing that, right? Like
Right,
the
right. No, agreed. I think that there are so many companies and cultures, by the way, uh, within that are in transition right now. And we talked about it. You talked passionately about it in that session with Indeed around brand, not just brand of what your customers see,
yeah.
your employer brand, and how that marries with your culture. But if you were to think about giving advice to the listeners, right, around whether you run a company, you're part of a big organization where you have a decision making role, or you're a leader or an influencer, also on the employee side, if you are feeling stifledness, I don't even know if that's a word, sorry, like in world, what's your kind of advice to sort of get, at least start to break out of that?
I think you need support, whether you're on the employee side or the employer side. When you looking in the mirror is tough. And we build stories also. We build our stories about our narrative, and often they're super outdated.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's not who I am anymore, or that's actually not the company that this is anymore, or we actually don't believe in those values, or actually we're not actioning those values. So either we don't believe it or something is getting in the way of actioning it. Again, whether that's as an individual or an employer. And so I think you need people to be able to reflect, and you got to get out of the vacuum, right? Because when you're doing it in your head and you're doing it in an insular environment, it can often you can often have blind spots. Support to help you see those, and to work with people that will are doing it for the right reasons, right? Like they're doing it because they want you to get to where you need to be. And so as an individual, right? Like it's not going to be your friend. They're biased. Your friends are biased. Your family is biased, right? So how can you really find support for yourself with people that are just like, able to see and mirror and reflect and also not project onto you. Same thing for consultants projecting their, hey, I got a 12-step plan for you to like fix your company, did it. That does not work.
Right. Right. That's just regurgitation of information that they've gathered and said in a different way. No offense to consultants, right? I mean, I worked in corporate America long enough. The execution is the hard part. And if you're trying to execute something that won't work, that doesn't mix with your culture, or you're trying to change the culture, it's a lot of money that's gone down the drain, right? And my view, and you and I've talked about this, so much of this starts from the top.
Yeah.
You mentioned, and I want to talk a little bit about your journey in a moment, because you ripped the Band-Aid off and left corporate and moved into entrepreneurship. So I do want to get to that. But you mentioned looking in the mirror, these
Mhm.
companies and even individuals, and you're kind of doing that, calling companies out. to say, hey, take a look in the mirror in your new manifest around the corporate culture revolution, right? Which I love as someone who has, dozens and dozens of corporate partners and has spent a long time in corporate. And specifically a call for marketers to lead the way. Let's dig in there. Why'd you write this? What's your hope and what's the objective? Based on what you've learned, what you know now, and as we chart the path forward.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Let's get at it. Let's get into it. So that, yeah, this manifesto is like, hey, like, marketers are well poised to do this work. And, what's happening right now isn't working. The playbook that we're using isn't freaking working. And so, honestly, the driver of this conversation around, like, marketers, like, this is a rally cry for you to pick this up, because people are disheartened, and I think that it's very hard to really say what you're feeling on the inside, because you got to play a game, and you got to, like, keep your job, and you get, all this stuff. And I feel like, you know what? Like, this is what people are saying, like, behind closed doors, to their friends, to their coworkers at the bar, whatever. And it's like, so you need to freaking hear it, because my hope is that if you hear it in a way that is real and impassioned, and that it will land, because something about what's happening isn't landing. To say, you're looking at your 2022 budgets, where is your investment in culture?
Right.
I'm not talking about training and development. I'm not talking about, like, the tiny funding you're putting toward DEI. I'm talking about the biggest thing that will drive success in your company, which is honoring that people are the ones lining the pockets of the senior leaders. And I believe that I do believe in my core that people that are in these positions, they want to do good. I just firmly believe that.
Yeah.
But we've lost our way, and we've followed a playbook that's super freaking outdated. And I just want to shake people up to say, you got to do the things differently. And I'm hoping that, the people that are turned off by that, calling out the power and speaking truth to power, they're not ready, and that's cool. But I want the people that look at that and know in their gut, they gotta be bolder, and they gotta get more uncomfortable. Those are the people that I hope will say, I get it. Okay.
You say and I had, for everyone watching, listening, or will watch and listen later, you say in here, I kept my eye on what kind of leader I was supporting. This is when you were in corporate America. My expectations for you were pretty basic. As a leader, will you own your responsibility and be accountable for the environment created under your watch? Why are you, and I think a lot of this, we've seen now brands being held accountable. You can vote with your wallet. Why are you now calling this out, Tosca? Is there something about the environment? Is there something about the Great Resignation? Or is this has been what you are focused on, and now you're coming at it and publicizing and saying, wait a second, I'm not going to sit down and listen to this any longer. I really want this to change.
Look, I felt this way for a very long time. People that know me know, like, feisty is my middle name. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, I'm very honest about how I feel about these things. And so I think a lot of it, why now? My own inner transformation, my own battle of, like, look, I'm a multidimensional person, right? I'm soft, and I'm compassionate, and I'm empathetic, and I hold space, and you can be wherever you are, and I will meet you there, and we'll walk the road together. And there's a side of me that's like, get the hell off of your freaking chair and do something that's actually going to make a difference versus keep putting out press releases that have no action plan behind it, that have no resources behind it. And so now I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay for me to be bold and be honest in how I feel about these things. And you know what? Accept that it's not for everybody.
Right.
And just again, like my own just owning of this is who I am. And maybe it would be more accepted if I was, you know, a white male. Maybe it would be more accepted if I had some, you know, big four, you know, company behind my name. But the reality is I don't, and I'm not, and I'm not going to be afraid to use my voice and my privilege and my power to say what I think needs to be said in this moment of time.
So talk about using your voice, right? And this is something that I think you and I connected on very early on. I remember sitting with you on the couch in Luminary Reception in the New York City location and saying, okay, there's a meeting of the minds here, right? You are not afraid to use your voice. Has that changed? Were you Feisty's your middle name? I think that's also one of the reasons why we get along too so well. And direct and candid and transparent. When you were in corporate America, did you feel like you could use your voice?
I did, and I did, right? And I stood up to power there. And also I knew where I had to choose my battles, right? Like weaving in the politics, because at the end of the day, my number one goal was to drive change in the most impactful way that I could from whatever seat I sat in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always, you know, speaking up where I felt like, you know, I couldn't sit down, or I couldn't bite my lip on that. And I think that, just to quickly go back to your question about why now,
Yeah.
because I think that there's a crack in the veneer. Like,
Mm.
like people are like, oh, all this stuff is going on. And I feel like now is the time to jump, because people will not be forgiving for very long. Now is the moment where people are like, okay, so we're just going to accept the past as the past. And now it's about what you do moving forward.
Right.
So for me, it's like, if you don't take this moment in time where people are, the awareness, the consciousness is being raised, you can't use the excuse, I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like, I don't know. Everybody is out there telling you what to do.
Right.
Like people of color, women of color, you know, people in marginalized communities. Like everybody's out there saying, okay, you ready? Right. And I'm still, and I believe, because I'm a positive person, I believe that especially because it's hitting the bottom line, because there was some stat that I heard about. It costs $4,500 just to onboard a new employee. So I think employers are also kind of seeing it hit the pocketbooks in a bigger way with the Great Resignation. And so in a way, it's like, oh, it's harder to ignore these hard and fast numbers, unfortunately, than it is to quantify the trauma that you're causing your employees and what that means for their lives. Unfortunately, but I think that's the moment of like, I think more leaders being willing to say, oh wait, what are we doing here, you know?
Yeah, I think I mean, we know just from our, luminary standpoint in the companies that we work with. I mean, the amount of companies that are coming to us now versus us just going to them about how we can help and how, we work with companies. It's dramatic, right? Which means, and I think goes back to something you said earlier around leaders want and are good people at the heart of it, right? And over the years, you get jaded by the politics and the climbing the ladder. And for those of us that have been in corporate for a long time, we all get that, right? But fundamentally, there are good people there. And it's making sure that they are getting information that's not super synthesized.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big problem. Leaders get information that's already synthesized. It's already been cleaned up. It's here's the good story, because no one wants to tell the bad story.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So,
and people don't want to lose Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and I think even in the world of consulting, and coaching, you can find people that just they want to keep the project,
Right. Yep.
right? And I think, like, I'm willing to lose a project if I feel like you're not ready,
Right.
right? Like if I feel like I gotta play a game and convince, da, 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 it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, right. But I think that whole like washing, right, happens because it's like, well, the CXO, they're not going to be happy if I tell them this thing.
Right.
Yeah,
And falls back on that individual that's giving the numbers, right? Well, what are you
yeah,
doing wrong, Tosca? What are you
yeah,
doing wrong, Cate? If your number, whatever the story is, we always want to make it a better picture. There's a question that came in on the chat. What, hi, Nancy, Nancy Rhodes. What does a culture investment look like for different size companies?
yeah.
Because a lot of big size companies do have budgets, right? They don't necessarily use them the right way, but then you're talking, there's small companies, luminaries, small business, right? What does that culture investment look like?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is, I think, whatever you think it is, that's not enough. Let's just start with that. If we just honor, right, that people are the most important investment, you know, the other piece I'll say is, well, what do what, when you look at budgets, how much do you want to invest in your people beyond the table stakes, beyond the
Mhm.
basics, beyond the 401ks, beyond the training and development, right? Like you can even look at it at like a per person. What could make sense there? There's a lot of different ways to build this. What percent do you spend on marketing? What fraction then would make sense for people? Like I think there's not one answer here. And I think it also depends on, if you have a very service driven business, you have to spend even more because your people are your brand.
Yep.
So I'm sorry I can't give like a here's the range, but again, I don't have a playbook back here that works for everybody,
Right.
right?
Well, that's why you're doing what you're doing, to work with companies, because
Yeah.
every company is not the same and every culture is not the same. One of the things that you put in the manifesto, which I also love, and I'm just going to quickly read it, because I wanted, this kind of dovetails into you and why, and you're leading, stability, and this is pre-Great Resignation. I imagine a different future. I believe a new dawn is already here. To me, we are not in the Great Resignation, but rather the Great Reset. And
Yeah.
you, meaning you, as you're talking to companies, are at the forefront of this next era. You, marketer, you, CMO, you, line of business head, you have the credibility, period. Unlike HR, and this is nothing against HR, which is really designed, and I've said this for years, and I love that you're saying it, designed to protect company interests. Marketing was designed to build a business. And you're really saying to these marketers, these CMOs, whoever it is within the company, I think it can apply to any business owner. You're there to build a business, right? You're there to listen to your people. You're there to build that culture and live it every day.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, but you, goes back to sort of, you ripped that Band-Aid off. Not that, I mean, that was what, 2019,
Uh,
18?
yeah, 2018.
So that's a huge leap. You left corporate America like I did and decided you were going to go on your own. And so, can you mentally, emotionally, how did it feel then to how it feels now? And obviously, we're still in a pandemic. I hate the fact that we're still effing saying that, but almost 2 years in, how has it been for you as an entrepreneur?
Well, even making that so first of all, right, I had a certain narrative around how I was going to have the impact in the world that I wanted to have, right? So I had told myself, "Oh, if I just get to that C blank O position, right? I'll have more power and I'll be able to do more and have more impact." And you know what? At what freaking cost and on what timeline? So I had to rip up that like narrow view of what was possible for me to do the work that I want to do. Um, and then, yeah, a whole lot of faith, a whole lot of trust, and a whole lot of working through my own inner critics and deconditioning, with outside support. I had coaches and I had support to be like, am I really doing this? And I didn't have like this grand vision. I just knew I needed to detox myself. I needed to start believing in limitless possibilities for myself. And the whole 3-year journey has been a constant journey of coming back to faith and coming back to trust and coming back to my truth, and going deeper and deeper into what that is for me, right? Like this moment of me putting this manifesto out there, or rally cry to marketers, is part of that, like deeper owning of, this is who I am. I'm bold and I call you out, and then I'll work with you, but
Right, right. Right. You're
yeah.
you truly put your money where your mouth is, you walk the
Yeah.
talk, right? And I think, to anyone that is in the or that are in those positions of leadership and influence in your companies, again, small, medium, and large, now is the time. Don't shy away from these conversations. And, I'm excited to see what we have another question. So before I wrap up, sorry, hopefully that's okay. Can I ask if either of you, when you finally took that leap, did you or wanted to just do absolutely nothing for a bit to get clarity before you had this present vision? Tosca, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Um, yes, actually, what I knew was that I was going to not worry about what was next. That I had lined up a coaching certification program, but that I wasn't building my business. I wasn't figuring out how I was going to make the next paycheck, because I knew I needed to go inward. I needed to do some healing. I needed to like remember all of who I am, all of my parts. And so, yeah, I had, and again, very privileged thing for me to do. I had, my husband and I created a runway for me to do this. So I was able to do it this way. But it was essential to not come out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
about you, Kate, like if how that was for
You
you.
know, I and Debbie, thanks for the question. For me, I can never. It's part of my my trait. I just can't sit still. Like I sit here, we're doing this, and my legs are going a mile a minute, right? I just can't sit still. And so when I decided that I was gonna leave banking, whether that was leaving for good, taking a break, whatever that looked like, what happened, Debbie, is as soon as I made that sort of like broader announcement, like I was taking a step back and going to do something different, I started getting calls from recruiters, and they were all for banking jobs. And I was like, wait a second, how is this possible? I want to do something different. That's why I'm making this. And it was only a few short weeks between leaving and then starting to interview for new roles that I wrote the business plan for Luminary. So, and when I do something, I'm all in. I tell people all the time, I can't have a side hustle. That's just not my personality. I give 100% to everything. And so I think what's great about Tosca's journey, my journey, is it's different for everyone. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. All you have to know is, in my view, you are betting. If you are making that leap, whether you're going to a new company, a new job, or starting your own thing, always bet on yourself, right? Which is exactly what you've done, Tosca. I put in the chat, I put in the banner where to follow you at Tosca de Matteo. I can tell you she has incredible Instagram lives as well, with some awesome seasoned leaders and different voices. I'm excited to see what happens in 2022 and the change and impact you're going to create, Tosca. And we are fortunate to have you as part of the Luminary community and just being a true luminary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm excited to see what 22 will bring. And yeah, thanks again for having me on this platform and being able to get feisty with you about these important topics.
Get mad and go forward, right?
Yes.
This is the time. So let's take advantage and look at the opportunity that the cracks in this veneer is having for us in the world. And I know if we're sitting here in 10 years and say, damn, we wasted that pandemic, I will not be a very happy person. And I know you won't be either.
Yeah, and it's not possible. There's already been so much being done, you know, and we have to remember that too. So much is being done, and we have to honor that and celebrate that because it's a long game, you
So long,
know.
you
It's not
got
gonna
it.
be fixed in our lifetime, so we might as well celebrate what we're doing so that we can keep our fuel full. Yeah, that's what we need.
Yep, you are so right. I love that. Celebrate even the small wins, right?
Yeah.
And keep swimming and moving forward. Well, it was great to have you. Hopefully, I'll get to see you in person soon.
Yes.
Everyone, I know we're only a few weeks away from the holiday break, but it's great to have you here. Hopefully, we'll see you next week on Goaldigger, same time, same channel. And have a great weekend, but continue to stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks, Tosca.
Thank you.